Recently, I have had the pleasure of finishing Mario Kart World, kind of. By that, I mean I got triple stars on all the Grand Prix Cups and all the Knockout Tour Cups. Obviously, I still have quite a lot of things to do. I still have to beat all the Ghost and Time Trial, and then I want to go ahead and do all of the challenge modes in free roam. There is still quite a lot of things to do in Mario Kart World. I'm only about 50 hours in. I have not put as much time into the game as most people, but I do really need to come out and say this at this stage, having played so much Mario Kart World as I have. This game is 100% better than Mario Kart 8. This is a stellar launch title for Nintendo Switch 2, a system seller, and a fantastic game all around. Now, it's unfortunate that I have to make a video straight up saying this, but this has been one of the most wildly disrespected and hated Nintendo games in recent memory. And I suppose after what happened with Mario Kart 7 and 8, this has become a trend because I remember what it was like when Mario Kart Wii came out, and everyone tried to say it was some disaster and some huge disappointment, only for it to become the one of the best-selling games ever. It was embarrassing to see so many people speak out against Mario Kart Wii, and that trend has not changed over the years. I can remember when Polygon released that article claiming that Mario Kart 8 was going to be one of the worst selling games in the series. And it's laughable looking back on it now, but at this stage, you can see a lot of that same sentiment being carried over to World. In essence, there is an observable trend among the gaming industry to refuse to acknowledge Mario Kart as being one of the biggest in the industry. This series is bigger than Grand Theft Auto. This series is highly lucrative and evergreen. This game was a huge monumental success that sold Switch 2s right out of the gate, and even 3 months later, after its monumental success, you still have a significant chunk of the online gaming population in denial about it. You can find people saying that the online is dead, which is not true. You can find people saying that the game can be beaten in 3 hours, which is not true. You can find people saying this is the worst Mario Kart ever produced, which is not true. The insane delusional copes about this game absolutely need to stop. Mario Kart has consistently been one of Nintendo's highest performing franchises. It sells tens of millions of units every single time it's released, and yet every time it is, we go through this same song and dance. This idea that Mario Kart is on the verge of failure and irrelevancy. This idea that nobody's going to want to play the new iteration of Mario Kart because, I don't even know why, because I've never even heard a good explanation. We're seeing that with Mario Kart World in particular. People making claims about the track design, right? People making claims about the open world. People making claims about, the online play. Well, do the actual players care is kind of my feeling on it. And seeing how many people I know who have put over 100 hours into this game already, if not more than that, I have a very hard time believing that people were in any way put off by the game, its price tag, or the system it was on. We were told, assured, when this game was coming out, that it was going to be this unmitigated disaster because of the $80 price tag. And yet, everything we've seen seems to indicate that this game has been selling very, very well, that it's very, very successful, and you can clearly see considering like the state of the eShop chart and the Famitsu sales charts and just your friends list on Switch 2 even, you can see that over the past 3 months, this game has continued to be a monumental success story. And still, we are in that awkward position where people just don't want to admit it, because that would be an inconvenient admission that Nintendo has won this console generation. And that is something that they were unwilling to acknowledge even in the Switch era. People may be pretending to be nostalgic for the Switch era now, but back then, a lot of the same people were freaking out about games on that platform. Anybody who was around in 2017 knows just how many people were crying about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And, oh, that's right, yes. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was wildly hated when it first came out as well, because a lot of people were expecting a brand new Mario Kart even back in 2017. In essence, because of the series' enduring success, because of its popularity, because of how obviously well it does, people who hate Nintendo absolutely need to downplay this franchise whenever it comes out with a new iteration. Just like they have to do with 2D Mario, just like they have to do with Animal Crossing, just like they have to do with Zelda. Pretty much everything that comes out that gets any traction whatsoever needs to be damage controlled by the general gaming population, who is desperate to maintain the illusion that Nintendo is some perpetually failing brand. And I do think that is the primary reason this game has not been discussed as much as it should have, because this is clearly something that outperformed Expedition 33. This is something that was easily bigger than like Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring or Silk Song or whatever else slop people are getting excited for. Like, this is a game that's going to be bigger than all of that, likely combined, for the next like several years or so. This is going to be a game that people are playing for years, a genuine game of the year contender, this huge milestone in gaming. And yet, like a lot of huge milestones in gaming, such as last year's Mario and Luigi Brothership, one of the best RPGs ever made, it is downright getting ignored by the community. And since good games are getting ignored and bad games are getting propped up in their place, we do need to acknowledge that the masses cannot be taken seriously when it comes to what is good and what isn't. That is the major takeaway, I think, about this entire ordeal. The entire situation about last year and the Mario and Luigi Brothership situation. The year before that and the Tears of the Kingdom situation. The year before that and the Pokemon Legends Arceus situation. Every single year we see a number of 10 out of 10 games get utterly dismissed for petty, lazy reasons. So essentially what this all boils down to is that Mario Kart World is one of the best games, if not the best game of the year, and the general gaming population will never, ever admit it. This is a game that's going to outgross pretty much everything else that's coming out this year. It's going to maintain its relevancy for years after release. This is going to be a very active online game for years to come, and yet we're seriously expected to believe that this game is some unmitigated disaster and has killed the Switch 2 before it even came out. Obviously, this is ridiculous, and it really does need to be called out and addressed, because none of the predictions that the Pretendos had about this specific release have come true at all. This is a game that everyone said was going to fail because of the price point, because it was releasing on a new console, because of the intermissions. People freaked out about this release, complaining about the mechanics, the character select screen, the all the modes, like there was so much about this game that was just brought up and addressed and nitpicked. And the reality of it all is that none of it has really amounted to much. Mario Kart World has become this huge, monumental success story. And at this stage, it is becoming harder and harder to deny it. By the time the next Mario Kart comes out, this is going to be considered an all-time classic because the people who actually play these games will have spent the past 5 or 6 years playing this one relentlessly. In that way, it will be no different than Mario Kart 8, a game that was also wildly hated and disrespected when it first came out, if not more so, only to go on to be considered the best racing game ever made by a lot of people. The way things are looking now, all of the nitpicks and concern trolling about Mario Kart World aren't even going to survive the year. And I expect that over time, this game is going to be considered more and more of an all-time classic because I have been really, really shocked at just how much time I've spent playing this game. And I am not the only one.